Aquilo, Season 4, Chapter 10. Oh, relationships. It's a wise man who never learns not to fear the wild beasts. I know it's difficult to think of some animals that way. Sure, a bear or a mountain lion is a threat. Even smaller beasts like foxes and rattlesnakes are a threat, though the latter isn't found this far north. It's those creatures with whom we share our immediate space, those with which we become familiar, that we stop fearing. Like squirrels and crows, whose paths we cross regularly and get very little respect otherwise. It's safe to say that I've adopted that point of view with the local raccoons. I went from disgusted by them to accustomed to their presence and even welcomed them into the cafe during lockdown. No longer did I perceive the furry little thieves as wildlife, treating them instead as pets. A half-dozen outdoor cats that come in for food on occasion. Looking down at Crimson, the ever-pissed-off raccoon with the red tag on his ear, I'm reminded of exactly what kind of creature these animals truly are. They are wild beasts, ferocious, aggressive, and unpredictable. Their instincts push them to behavior that can be passive at times, but also extremely volatile. Between their teeth and claws, while I don't think they could kill a full-grown human being, they can certainly inflict serious and permanent damage. The scar on my left upper arm is testimony to just how easily they can tear at flesh, even with the best of intentions. But what would it be if they ripped at an ear or tore at an eye? The dawn keeps clean, I was once told about the leader of the raccoon tribe of Aquilo, but that mostly had to do with rabies. These animals sleep in trash and eat roadkill. Infection risk from their bites and scratches is a real concern. These are all worries that weigh heavily on me when I decide to evict Crimson. In the best of situations, I'd do so with my trusty broom. I've pushed out more than my fair share of raccoons with that broom, and usually without incident. But the urgency of this particular situation doesn't allow for the luxury of a proper tool. I have an angry, unhinged raccoon snarling and growling at one of my customers in the middle of a half-crowded dining room. The time for interspecies pleasantries is over. "Hey," I call out, startling those few patrons yet to notice the commotion. "Would you mind getting the hell out of the cafe?" On the surface, that might sound diplomatic, but my balled fists and my stance between the raccoon and the target of his bared teeth, it's more of a threat. My hope is that being confronted like this will startle Crimson enough that he'll back down and scamper off to the back door. Not that he's the most skittish specimen of his tribe, but a lone raccoon in the middle of a dozen humans? Surely he'll think better of standing his ground. Alas, he's about as pig-headed as his lord and master, the Dawn. In fact, he's so obstinately focused on Vicky that he tries going around me to continue with his toothy threats. "All right, I gave you a chance." Some would call what I do next brave. Other, more reasonable voices would call it foolish, stupid even, but I'm at my wit's end at this point. There's no way I won't have to close the Aquilo for the afternoon, and just thinking of the lost revenue makes me fume. Not to mention that I can see Ophelia staring at me, judging me for what's happening. With one hand, I scoop up the irate raccoon, while with the other, I clamp his jaws shut. Copious amounts of drool seep from between his lips as he attempts to bite and nip at my fingers. I don't know how serious he is about causing me injury, but I strengthen my hold as a precaution. His claws flail, inflicting a fair amount of minor scratches on my forearms, as well as snagging on my shirt and apron. Little bastard is turning me into Julienne. But I'm still not his target. His focus, from the glare in his eyes to the swipes of his paws, are directed behind me, at Vicky. With little ceremony, I toss Crimson out the back door and onto the asphalt in front of the dumpsters. Like the fattest, angriest little acrobat, he rolls before flipping over to face me on all fours. There's the briefest of moments where I'm not sure if he'll try to charge for the door again or if he'll stand down at last. In fact, I'm not sure that in the moment even he knew what the choice would be. "Don't you dare," I warn, finger wagging in his direction. He looks around and, just as I do, notices the other raccoons are poking their heads out of their garbage home. Looks like a parody of balcony seating at the theater, but instead of rich people who overpay for bad seats, it's 5 little raccoon heads with beady black eyes that watch us. And just like that, Crimson decides I'm no longer worth his time, that Vicky is no longer worth his time. He makes his way to the dumpster and to his family, looking more and more like the animal he is rather than the cunning antagonist I imagined him to be. He crosses a line of freshly laid salt before climbing up to his own domain. The dining room is now empty, or nearly empty. The last patrons are crossing the door, leaving only Annabelle, Stefan, Vicky, and Ophelia. Though that last one is calmly picking up the last of her things and settling her cat back in her bag. William, the cat, is a bit of a curiosity. Much like Crimson, he too is focusing an unusual amount of his attention on Vicky. Though he's not as aggressive, his green eyes are completely round and unblinking, while his ears and whiskers point forward with all of their focus.
"Well,"
Ophelia says, picking her way between the tables and chairs,
"that was certainly exciting. Hopefully you have time to get everything cleaned up for the evening. I'd hate to think what a health inspector would think of wildlife running around your dining room like that."
She puts a sympathetic hand on my arm as she passes, flashing a perfect little smile full of white teeth and passive aggression. I shrug her off, which serves only to multiply her apparent satisfaction. She's savoring the moment the way I savor a perfectly set flan.
"What was that?"
Vicky laughs, a little tremor of nerves marbled into her question.
"I don't know."
I shake my head.
"These raccoons think they own the place, I swear."
She giggles, which reassures me that she isn't traumatized by the experience or disgusted by having a garbage-dwelling omnivore waddle through the dining room while people were eating.
"Oh, well,"
she continues.
"You know Aquillo and our raccoons. We don't have the signs for nothing."
It's true. Aquillo has a thing for these animals. There are more raccoon crossing signs on these streets than anywhere else I've been. In fact, are there raccoon crossing signs anywhere in Quebec but here?
"Are you going to be okay for tonight?"
she asks, showing a surface level of worry.
"Oh, for sure. I'll disinfect this place in a jiffy, and Stefan will take the evening shift. Just think of a place to eat, and I'll see you at 7 o'clock in front of the park," she decides. Canada side. "It's a date."
The words slip out, and instantly my skin turns red. No, I tell myself to calm down. It's a perfectly normal saying. It doesn't mean anything, not to her and not to me.
"Perfect."
She smiles and slings her bag over her shoulder and makes her way to the door, setting the chimes to jingle. It's like the Aquillo itself is saying goodbye.
"Are you out of your mind?"
Of all the people I know, I don't expect Annabelle to be the one to shatter my little reverie, but here we are. Her books are piled up on the counter next to her empty coffee mug. The vast collection of pens, pencils, and highlighters she covers her area with are neatly put away, and her bag is sitting on the stool, open like a mouth ready to swallow all her supplies, books and pencil case, in a single gulp.
"What? You can't go on a date with her."
"Oh, please," I say, starting to pick up dishes, glasses, and mugs in preparation for the cleanup.
"It's not a date. We're just having dinner."
Annabelle looks around, making sure that Stefan is out of earshot. I look over and he's in the kitchen, busying himself with emptying the dishwasher so we can put in a fresh load.
"I don't care if you're going on a date with her or getting married,"
Annabelle whispers, her hands conveying as much outrage as her words.
"You can't see her alone."
"And why the hell not? I don't judge who you date."
"Because she's a demon."
Okay, let's take a moment to unpack the accusation. Obviously, she thinks me too love-struck to be objective and thinks I'm missing the obvious. But of anyone in Aquillo today, I'm fairly certain I have the most experience with how raccoons and demons interact. I have a scar on my left arm and another in my belly to testify to that fact. I get it. Raccoons growl at demons. Well, my raccoons growl at demons, and the Don draws protection circles out of salt when he fears there's a demon nearby. But I know that Vicky isn't a demon because I've known demons. I've seen their purest physical forms, and I've seen when they wear a human skin. If Vicky was a demon, I think I'd have a good idea of it by now. That's absurd. I go back to picking up dishes, intent on ending the conversation there.
All the more reason to at least consider the possibility.
Annabelle keeps stepping in front of me as I attempt to get work done.
This is Aquilo, after all.
All right, that's not the worst argument I've heard so far.
How many demons have you met?
I ask, putting my fists on my hips, leveraging all 2 years of seniority I have on Annabelle. She frowns, which on her isn't a pretty sight. There's nothing cute about an annoyed or angry Annabelle. Of all her emotions, that's the one she expresses without filter.
1, if I'm right about Vicky.
I've met 3, without counting Vicky, which I'm not, because she isn't a demon. Her irritation rising along with the red on her face, she grabs the stack of plates from my hand and slams them on the table closest to her. With her index finger pointing painfully at my chest, hitting my apron right on the tree of the Aquilo logo, she's starting to look like a demon herself.
Fine,
she spits.
Let's look at this scientifically then. You want to look at Aquilo demons scientifically? Indulge me, Miriam.
I nod. I know when I'm the one being difficult, if only because the people around me become a reflection of what I am. And Annabelle, well, she's a better mirror than most. Probably because it takes so much more to get her to cast a reflection. Thankfully, my agreement softens her attitude.
So,
she says, stepping back and composing herself.
Your big argument is that you've met demons and would know one if you saw them. Assuming you're not claiming any supernatural demon-sensing powers, what would you say sets one apart from a normal human being?
I have to give this one some thought, and I do so by picking at the contents of my apron pockets. Notebook, pens, wooden spoon.
Well, putting aside the obvious ones like the hunger demon and Peter and Agnes in their true form, I suppose what made them stand out was how extreme they were. Peter kept himself well satisfied as a lust demon and came off as impossibly attractive and charming. It was impossible to say no to him. You've met super charming guys before, right? The kind of man that makes you feel like you're the only girl in the room, like no one is even a sliver as important as you are.
She frowns again, this time with doubt.
No, but that sounds awesome. But you get what I'm saying, right? And Peter was like that? No,
I say, pausing for effect.
Peter made that guy look like an awkward slob. In hindsight, it feels ridiculous that we didn't see him for what he was. The first day he came through that door, I thought the sun had dimmed in comparison to Peter. And that's not Vicky?
It feels like a betrayal to admit that it isn't. Vicky is cute. No, wait, that doesn't do it justice. My brother Eric is cute. Annabelle is cute. Vicky is beautiful. The high cheekbones and perfectly symmetrical features are everything you'd expect to see in a movie star. She isn't just some aspiring actor. She looks the part, too. I shake my head. No, I admit, like it's a shameful confession.
She's a sight. There's no denying that. She almost feels out of place in a town like Aquilo. But she's no Peter. She's no lust demon. What about Agnes?
I sigh. Agnes is not someone I like to talk about. Agnes is like toffee, great on the taste buds, but sticky. And if I talk about her, I'll think about her, and then it'll be hard to get her out from between my teeth, so to speak.
When I met Agnes, she was starving,
I say, my eyes almost watering at the memory of her.
I didn't know at the time. None of us did. She just seemed like an angry teenager. But there was something menacing about her, far too menacing for such a tiny creature. Maybe she looked like a ball of piss and vinegar, but she gave off the aura of a predator. I just wish we'd realized sooner that she was starving herself for us.
That, more than my impassioned description of Peter, is what I think did it for Annabelle. She can't meet my eyes, and her right hand moves to support her left shoulder. She dug and dug, and now her shovel hit something soft in me, and I don't think she liked what she found.
I'm not convinced,
she says, picking up her green denim bag.
I'll trust your judgment. More than I'll trust a raccoon, I guess. But Miriam, be careful. I shouldn't have to tell you about people dying in Aquilo.
It didn't take long after Annabelle's departure for me to chase Stefan out, too. The clock was ticking ever closer to dinner time, and I kicked him out so he could get a decent meal. Besides, the whole dining room of the Aquilo stank of disinfectant, which I'd sprayed liberally on all the tables and chairs. Makes for a good excuse for my red and puffy eyes and constant sniffling. If I'm going to be stuck thinking of Agnes, I'd rather do it alone anyways. What would she think of my getting dinner with Vicky? Would she be jealous? Or would she high-five and congratulate me? I bet it would be the latter. I'm wiping my last table, steeling myself for the kitchen that still needs a good cleaning. The dishwasher will need to be emptied, but all the larger pots and pans have to be washed by hand, not to mention the counters and the floor that require a solid mopping up. Then I'll have to rush upstairs and change for dinner. I won't have time for a shower, but I should touch up whatever makeup I'm wearing. Vicky knows I spent the afternoon scrubbing and brushing, but that doesn't mean she's not worth the effort. I spray down the table, small rainbows exploding briefly as the sunlight interacts with the cloud of droplets from the disinfectant. Slowly, I count to 60, doing my best to respect the product's dwell time. Another of those hard-to-break habits acquired during the lockdown. As I'm about to break off a few sheets of paper towel, I hear the Aquilo's chimes tease at an arrival.
I'm sorry,
I shout back, leaning over the table to wipe off the cleaning product.
We're closed for the afternoon. Doris would still fix me a cup of coffee.
Gulliver's voice echoes through the empty cafe.
And maybe toss in a cookie if she had any.
I spin around like an overeager ballerina. I'm not sure what I expected, neither from him nor myself. Did I think he'd be there with Ophelia, arm in arm, and expecting special treatment? Or was it some sort of sad, puppy-eyed version of Gulliver I want to see, sorry for having betrayed me by sleeping with the enemy? What I do get, however, is something different from Gulliver. Pity. Not the kind of condescending pity, though. That version stings. It hurts like a knife through the heart by combining insult and care in an unlikely and unpalatable combo. It's the milk and lemon juice of feelings. This pity isn't like that. This is that bitch Cindy all over again. Of the many things that kept me from really hating my ex's new girlfriend, the one that stood out is how she always seemed truly sorry for what she was doing to me. She acted like her relationship with my boyfriend wasn't some act of malicious emotional thievery. The way she lived through our weird relationship was akin to that of a woman on a raft, being carried over some rapids. She had no control over the situation, and the only thing that was different between her and me was that raft. Cindy didn't pity me because she thought I was less than her. She did it because she somehow wanted me to have as much as she did while knowing how preposterously impossible that was. That's what's in Gulliver's face right now. Those knitted eyebrows forcing premature wrinkles all over his forehead, the thin smile that hides his usually spectacular teeth. I'm guessing he knows that I know at this point, probably from Ophelia herself.
I'm not mad,
I try to reassure him.
I wouldn't have any right to it even if I was.
He sighs and shakes his head, as if what I had just said was the most Miriam thing in the world. It isn't. I didn't reference food once in that sentence, but I understand his relief.
Glad that's out of the way,
he says, sitting on his usual stool. I notice for the first time that it's the same stool Ophelia keeps taking when she insists on sitting at the counter. Maybe it's a coincidence, but Aquilo and all that.
I'm hurt that I didn't know anything about it until, well, you know.
That's fair. He scratches at a dent in the counter. The solid piece of raw wood has seen a few things, and the marks are there to testify to that. Like all of us, it has its scars. Like me, I'm careful not to buff them out too quickly.
If it's any consolation, he adds, the whole thing came together quickly. Out of nowhere, really, and, well, it's just nice to meet someone who's not weirded out. I'm not weirded out,
I react, a little fast and far too offended. He laughs. It's a patented Gulliver laugh, throat bare and with his mouth open to the sky. You pulled a chef knife on me the very first day we met. First, it was a fillet knife, I correct him. Second, I guess there is no second. I guess Ophelia didn't threaten you with a knitting needle or sick her cat on you, did she? He shakes his head, a broader, more honest smile on his face now. I get him some pastries, a pair of cinnamon strudels that were going to get stale anyway, and a caramel apple donut. The coffee machine looks like just another appliance when I look at it, but I always have difficulty judging if this is going to be a day that it cooperates or one where it tries to boil my skin off. She didn't freak out when I mentioned my name, Gulliver explains between 2 bites of donut. Judging from the way he looks at it, round eyes and arched eyebrows, he's impressed by the result. She just said, like the serial killer, and then dropped the subject entirely. Really? I pull a lever on the coffee machine, bracing for the worst. She's usually more of a chatterbox. She is, non-stop talking. But she asked me about the truck and about my job. We talked about where we grew up, education, not about why my mom thought it'd be funny to name me after a murderer. She asked him about him, and they talked about themselves, getting to know each other. I damn near tried to skin him alive, but instead Ophelia put down the foundations of a normal human relationship. Maybe she is just a better person than me. Don't beat yourself up, Gulliver says, noticing the cloud forming over my head. I know where you're from. Anyone would have been suspicious in your shoes after all you've been through. Ophi doesn't have any of that baggage to lug around. How is that supposed to make me feel better, though? Not only is Ophelia better put together as a person than I am, she also had an easier time of everything than I have. A normal family with a complete education followed by healthy relationships. No wonder she can navigate this whole entrepreneur thing like a deer dancing through the woods. Oh, it's Ophi already, is it? I force a smile, hoping to fake a better mood. He laughs again before pushing the last bite of his donut into his mouth. The cafe is eventually fully cleaned up, disinfected, and ready to open again tomorrow morning. The irony in this little adventure in unsanitary invasions is that at any time during the night, Brioche could pick the lock and open the door for all 6 raccoons to invade the Aquilo again. Avoiding raccoons anywhere in Aquilo, not just the cafe, is like tossing a sponge in a bucket of water and expecting it to come out dry. There's a reason why everyone knows and keeps an eye open for raccoons here. The key to my apartment turns in the lock. Stefan wasn't there when I went up to change and get ready. The scant few items he managed to get from his apartment are still in the living room. A carefully folded stack of shirts and pants rest on the colonial-style armchair, while his socks and underwear are hidden in a bag he keeps under the coffee table. His laptop and current reading material, a library copy of Transparent Things by Nabokov, are laid out on the couch next to the sheets and pillow I've lent him. Everything is in order and arranged precisely, just as Stefan likes it. Of the man himself, however, there was no trace, and I felt no inclination to dig into his life further to find him. I have my own problems to worry about. I've never been great at flirting. At best, I'm clumsy and awkward. At worst, I allow any and all subtext to fly harmlessly over my head, never a risk of having an impact. The most dreaded situation is this one, though. The uncertainty of not knowing if my dinner with Vicky Paramore is a date or just breaking of bread between friends. Do I try to put on the charm, whatever that might end up being? Or do I keep it cool and just enjoy an evening of not being Miriam Dufour, owner and operator of the Aquilo Cafe and heir to the Dufour witchcraft legacy? Until I can see clear signs of what this meal is supposed to be, it's both and neither. I'm going on Schrodinger's date. My mind wanders a bit on that subject, occupying itself as I walk the few blocks to Aquilo Border Park. What would a date with Edwin Schrodinger even be like? I bet with him, the term dinner in a movie takes on a whole different meaning. The park looks relatively calm at this time of night. The sun has long fallen over the horizon, but the sky remembers its touch with a dark indigo hue that still persists. It's tempting to walk into the park proper and investigate whether or not the denizens of the night, the weirdos that frequent the park at midnight, have gotten an early start. Thinking back on the previous few encounters I've had in the park, I decide against it. Besides, I'm supposed to wait for Vicky here, and I wouldn't want to be late. Still, before sitting on a bench to pass away the time, I cast a curious glance at the middle of the park. Above the trees, I can see the flagpoles, each waving the colors of their respective nation. Their shapes are barely distinct as the night encroaches. In my mind's eye, I can see the massive tree, the one I assume to be an aquilo. Olivia promises that it wasn't, even as a vision, but I can't imagine what else it could be. Minutes of waiting trickle away, the blue of the sky sinking further and further into darkness. Evening loses its name, turning into night. I alternate between sitting on a bench right at the edge of the park and walking the length of the street. She's late. Which is fine. I run a cafe, so of course I'm no longer the carefree teenager I used to be. Vicky is a busy woman and an aspiring actress. She just got caught up in her preparations or is stuck on an important phone call. She'll be turning the corner of North and Rue Principale right about now. It'll just be a few more minutes, I think, as the streets get progressively quieter and emptier, draining themselves of people, activity, and life. Sooner than I'd want, I'm left almost alone sitting on my bench on Rue Principale. I pass the time by counting the seconds between each car that drives by, worrying as that number grows with every vehicle. At last, the only lights on are those of the few restaurants in Aquilo. There's that Italian place that makes incredible pizza but can't seem to put together an acceptable red sauce. If I lean over and look down the street, past the Aquilo and about a block from Stefan's residential complex, I can see the bright red neon sign of the little Lebanese fast food joint. Finally, right in front of me is Chez Yvonne, the quintessential Quebec greasy spoon. It's where the truckers and construction workers get their morning meal of 5 eggs, bacon, ham, baked beans, and a pyramid of toasted sliced bread. And it's where students come to dilute the alcohol in their system with poutine, burgers, and steamed hot dogs that'll give them gas for hours. Any of these places will do. All I need is for Vicky to show up. Even if, in the end, all we do is split a fry at Yvonne's while listening to her tell me about having been on the phone with the director, talking about how they upgraded her part, I want this date to happen. Behind me, there's music playing. It's a jazzy swing tune that, under the right circumstances, would have me tapping my feet to the rhythm. Right now, my feet are as still as the street in front of me. I don't dare look at my phone to know the hour. That music drifting in from the park is no doubt playing on the tall man's phone as he does his rounds through the park. If I'm right, then the hour of 10 is about to toll, and with it, all the restaurants but Chez Yvonne will close their doors. 3 hours late. I should have gotten her number. Maybe I can look her up online, but I doubt I'll find her personal information there. Do I know anyone who knows her? I told all my friends I was going on this date. I played coy, saying I didn't know what it was, but it's clear I know what I want it to be. The music gets louder as the tall man's walk brings him closer to me, then fades out as he walks away. This happens over and over, about a half dozen times. I've decided that Vicky isn't coming. Either she stood me up or got caught up in something, or Aquilo happened to her. I worry for her, but I'm also angry and hurt. It's just another disappointment, another failure. The door to the Italian restaurant opens, setting little bells to sing, and 2 people walk out, lights closing behind them. As I recognize the couple, I scoot over on my park bench, inching away from the light like a cockroach fleeing under the fridge. The man laughs, throwing his head back and showing his teeth to the sky. The woman pulls herself in closer to him, holding his arm. She's holding a bag, and if I look carefully, I can see 2 green eyes looking at me from the top of that bag. Why does she have all the things I want? Are you sure? A voice whispers behind me. You should be alone on a night like this. Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.